continue the conversation with Cynthia from Jibo, but also joining me is Naveen Rao, who is from Narav Solutions. And tell us a little bit about what you do, but essentially it's a deep learning company with an emphasis on software.
That's right. So we're a deep learning platform, sort of soup to nuts. We provide everything from services to examples of types of neural networks that will work on certain data problems, all the way to layers of abstraction for parallelism and infrastructure. So basically, the idea is, the entry point is the cloud. Building machine learning solutions requires a lot of computational power. It requires customized infrastructure to do these things fast and efficiently. So we focus on speed, ease of use, and scale, so that everyone can basically have access to the latest and greatest machine intelligence platform for their applications.
Okay, and also here is Erica Young, who is from Insight Robotics. And Erica, the slogan that you have online, nothing less, is saving the world bit by bit. Tell us a bit about that.
So we developed the first basically robot that detects forest fires. So we replace manned watchtowers with unmanned watchtowers, and the robot scans the forest, identifies a hotspot when it's 1 tree in size, and is able to alert authorities so they can make the necessary decisions. So we're operating in over 10 provinces in China at the moment, and have pilots in Canada, South Africa, and soon in Australia.
And you have a background in slightly humanized robotics as well,
yes,
including the project actually that Cynthia was just talking about.
Yes, so I was the designer that designed Autumn, which was the robot that dealt with behavior change and medication compliance, other chronic disease management. And
I think what's interesting about this, from a layman's perspective, or someone who's just interested in this but doesn't know about computer engineering and that overlap with neurology and all of that stuff, is that all of you have backgrounds in academia to do with this as well. And you look around the conference, and it's a big hot word at the moment, AI and deep learning. And you go to every startup, and they all say, oh, we're all AI and we're deep learning. But you guys have actually been interested in this field for a very long time as academics as well. What's changed over that time, and why do you think we are having this moment now where everyone wants to get in on the act? Cynthia, first of all.
Yeah, so I do think it's a convergence of a lot of things. So obviously there's the power of computing and networking and data, and with that, advances in the computational techniques that we can use and apply to the data to make sense of it. I think there's a consumer readiness. I think because we've been exposed to Siri and things like that, there's a fluidity with technology. We all carry computers in our pocket now. I think there is this palpable, of course the robot must be coming next. Yeah. So there's a real readiness there. And then there are some real societal challenges that we face, and I touched on a lot of them in the presentation, where there's not enough human professionals to fill the demand. And so we do need technology to come in and help bridge that so people can get the support they need when they need it. And again, the understanding the importance of supporting people not just on the cognitive and the data, but the social and the emotional and also the physical leads to, again, greater engagement and greater success. And I think just appreciating that insight of this much more holistic approach to how we create technologies that really support people is also reaching new dimensions, with affective computing and things like that. So it's a convergence of all these things.
But also in the form, surprisingly, for what you're doing, of a consumer product. And that's going to retail at $749, I think I read.
Yeah, roughly, like if you think about an iPad.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a huge shift as well, isn't it? This data is now so accessible, and the technology gets cheaper, that you can make this a product that real people are going to be interacting with, rather than just reading about the surgeon's going to be using in the future. And is that your experience doing open cloud-based stuff in this area as well? There's been that shift recently.
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on it. The consumer readiness is a big part of it. 20 years ago, I think people would be much more apprehensive about using a digital assistant or sort of trusting our data, personal data, to be in certain areas, certain places. Now the cloud has become very common. We're sort of okay with it. We upload our images to it. Also, our society has become very data-centered, right? We sort of create value in the data world now. It's less about the physical world, and so I think everyone's just become more comfortable with that, and so it's an inevitable change to start moving to something that processes data efficiently.
Well, okay, so that's the real question, isn't it? has everyone become more comfortable with it? Because everyone in Silicon Valley is talking about it, and everyone here is interested in it. In the real world, I mean, it was really interesting, Cynthia, in your presentation, we had images of R2-D2 and the robot from the Jetsons and all this stuff, and those are positive things. We can also all think about RoboCop and the Terminator and Moon and endless sci-fi tropes where robots don't work out so well for humanity, and having them in your house isn't such a great thing. The Audrey 2 model. Erica, in the world that you're in, where people aren't actually interacting with your robots on a human level,
Yep.
I imagine there's still actually, in the real world, some nervousness about robots doing a job that humans used to do. Humans used to be on watchtowers and looking out for those fires.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, talking about are we ready for this now? I think we're realizing that it's the collaboration between the humans and the robots that yields to a result that neither could get to independently, right? So it's about, let's allow the robots to do the mundane, the dangerous, the repetitive, the tasks that just aren't within our nature, and allow us to make more of the higher level decisions. And so in doing that, you need to build up a certain level of trust, and you have to manage the expectations such that people realize, okay, well, what this is an enabling technology. What this is going to allow me to do is something that I couldn't do before, and focusing on that rather than the replacement is where we need to focus.
So is that a hurdle for you, Cynthia? That obviously there's a lot of people who in your crowdfunding stage were very keen on this product, but there's maybe a larger number of people who are intrigued by it but might feel uncomfortable talking to a robot.
Yeah, so I can say, I mean, from my own experience at MIT doing these studies with all different areas, working with teachers, doctors, families, I think people are basically trying to deal with real problems they're trying to solve. And if they feel a technology is going to really help them do that effectively and with a great experience, they're open to it. I think people are actually in the real life very practical about it. I think when you can create an experience that's intuitive and enjoyable, even populations like people say, oh, seniors, elders, they're scared of technology. I haven't seen that at all. I think they understand that technology can really help them age with independence, which is something they really do want to do in their homes. And if you can provide them with an experience in technology that really helps them do that, they want it. So
see, but that's it, isn't it? If we're talking about aging and using robots for carers, it is a problem that needs solving, that there are lonely people that need medical assistance and help. But there's a danger, isn't there, that the human element then withdraws completely when the robots take over. If they get too intelligent, there's a fear that, my grandmother's going to never have any human interaction at all.
yeah, I think that's where, I think the media keeps trying to push it, and it's not a message that anyone who's actually creating these technologies is trying to do. We understand this is really about empowering people to live the life they want to live, and we understand that people need people, families need families, and these technologies can help to connect people, bring them the access to services and information that they want to be able to feel that they can live independently. So I think we just need to, again, approach these problems from understanding it's really about how does technology serve human flourishing for the whole stakeholder, which is families, extended families, and even the professional providers, and come up with solutions that make sense within that context.
I mean, the other thing people are very aware of increasingly, obviously, is the risk of hacking. And when you have a robot that people are interacting with on a daily basis for their medical needs, it's looking after their kids at night, as we saw in your promotional video, that's an open invitation to hackers, isn't it, to have a go? How much do you think about that, Naveen, when you're providing systems for these kinds of technologies?
Well, security is from the get-go. We think about it. Everything is encrypted. Everything is protected with the best possible methods that we know of, right? I mean, hacking is always a real threat, and it's just, I think it's a natural consequence of centralization and scale, right? Once you put we put a bunch of information in one place, the cloud, it's susceptible to it, right? It's a possibility. It's a risk, but it's outweighed greatly by the benefits. I think that's the way to look at it, right? It's true with anything, right? I mean, you can take a drug, there could be side effects, but we look at sort of the cost-benefit ratio, and the cost is much less than the benefit in this case.
And therefore, a product like Jibo becomes cheaper too. I mean, are you using that kind of infrastructure behind it?
Certainly. So privacy and security, of course, are of paramount importance to our company and I would think any company who's bringing a kind of technology like this into the home. So the concerns are certainly very similar to what, bring a drop cam into your house, or even our mobile phones that we carry with us all the time, right? So these concerns are already out there in the technologies we use, and so we just have to apply best practices.
Do you think people will ever have a relationship, or I'll rephrase this, do you think people of our generation and older will ever have a relationship with a robot of the kind that we're seeing in the promotional videos? It's one thing to look at kids now who are 10 and they might grow up with this idea. I tried an Amazon Echo, I plugged it in, I did unplug it after a week because I felt a bit weird at knowing everything I was talking about.
Well, I guess I would say in the same way that we anthropomorphize so many different products in our lives, right? You have a very close relationship with the car that you rebuilt, and you name it, and you talk about it in an emotional context. I think for sure we will have something of that nature with robots in our lifetime. Is that going to be the same sort of deep, when you think of relationships that people have, there's kind of these circles of the people you confide in, your family, your acquaintances, right? It goes out, your Facebook friends, whatever. I don't think that the robots are going to be at the core of that diagram, but I think that you will have an emotional connection, no doubt.
And I think it'll be it's going to be a different kind of relationship. You can't just map it onto something that exists. I think this new kind of relationship is being formed.
Because it was really interesting seeing that graph that you had of, you had the pet companionship and the relationship you have with something like Siri, and it's somewhere in between. Because, I love my cat, but if my cat knew my password to my computer, that would kind of terrify me. Do you know what I mean? And it's creating this new category where that's okay. And right from the beginning, that's what the deal is. I mean, in the design process, how much do you think about how human the product is going to be? I mean, Jibo doesn't look human. He has human qualities, although he's gendered. He's a boy.
Yeah, that's right. No, I think it's a fascinating design space, and I think it's very thoughtful in terms of all the dimensions, in terms of what are the practical benefits that this technology can bring to you in a way that's differentiated from anything else that's already out there, and how is it going to fit into your life in a way that you welcome it, and it again provides a sort of humanized engagement that actually provides real utility. So a lot of thought has gone into a product like Jibo in terms of how anthropomorphic it is. It's purposely left to be abstract enough because it's a platform for content. The more you kind of fill in the details, the more you're kind of almost painting it into a corner. So Jibo is almost presented more explicitly as an anthropomorphized but blank canvas for developers to infuse with their content. So again, a lot of thoughtfulness in terms of how it's being positioned in the market and the role that we see it, envisioning it playing in people's lives and growing over time, according to how the developers want to provide new skills for the platform.
I mean, will human-looking robots always be a bit weird?
Well, so I think it's interesting that, and Cynthia touched on this a little bit in our talk, but this whole idea of like having a new sort of relationship with an inanimate object has happened already many times. I mean, I am a car enthusiast. I race cars and this kind of a thing, and there's this particular kind of relationship you have with that machine, and there's a specific kind of interface that we expect with that sort of a machine, right? I mean, the way the brakes feel, the way the steering input works. I mean, all of these things are there. You have to become sort of intimate with it in a weird way, right? It's not a human, it's not an animal, but it's just another thing. And I think, the reason that maybe the faces sort of remind us of human expressions but are different actually allows us to build that kind of relationship with new objects, right? And so it's just a matter of socializing it and getting used to it.
Do you think, Erica, we could ever see a human-looking robot that people want in their house?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it goes back to a number of different facets, right? It's about managing expectations. If you have something that looks so humanoid, you're going to expect it to engage with you at a certain level, right? And so I think managing that expectation so that the relationship or the interaction is successful, and you're projecting just in the same way that if you have a stainless steel fridge that's really technical looking with lots of buttons on the front, you expect it to perform at a different level than a basic white plastic fridge. Like every product is telling you something about what it's capable of by the way it looks, by the way it acts, by the way it sounds, and the way it feels when you use it. And so this is just another manifestation of that. I think there was Rob Walker wrote this book called Buying In, and he talks about the success of Hello Kitty. And he said one of the reasons that Hello Kitty is such an international success is because of how simple it is and how it allows each of us to project onto it. And I think that's what's so great about Jibo, is that it encourages that, and that allows anybody to engage with it in the way that they see fit.
I mean, there's an irony, isn't there? I was talking to an investor about this last night at a drinks party, and he was talking about seeing all the startups. And he was saying that actually they're pitching at him, but really what he's doing is he's using his human intuition to say, what kind of guy are you? Could we work together? Is this bullshit? And of course, we feel that robots can't do that, but you said an interesting thing backstage to me, Naveen. You said human beings are just a collection of data as well. Our intuition is just data.
That's right. And so I think what that human intuition is, or what have you, is basically you're trying to understand someone's experiences, right? I mean, what do we do when we go to school? We learn about a certain field, and so if I can speak to someone at a particular level, if I've studied that field, then I understand a little bit about their experience, and maybe I understand what they're capable of, right? Because I can project it back upon myself. So, machines can do that. We can basically, we call it a prior in statistics, right? It's basically like the set of experiences that led up to what you're capable of doing now, the skills that you have. And so that's what we're doing when we're sizing someone up.
Cynthia, how far away do you think it is that a product like Jibo would have the level of understanding that a human brain can?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, with that first slide is actually people, again, map kind of brain power to computational power. I mean, it's really hard to know because obviously neurons are quite different than transistors. It's a different kind of intelligence that we're creating right now than obviously what the human mind is. I think I'm trying to understand the partnership. I actually think that the thing that's so exciting about robots is that they're not human, honestly. It's that they're different from us, and because of that, they can complement us in really powerful, interesting ways. And I think that's the opportunity we really want to achieve. So for me, it's really more about, well, what do the robots or what do the technologies really need to do to, again, help address what we're really trying to do in our lives, right? And so it's the teamwork and the complementarity that I'm really interested in getting right. And it may mean that the robot doesn't need to be as smart as a person or smart in a different way, but able to engage us in a way that supports the way that we naturally want to interact. So that experience is critical to get right. But I don't, from my own work, you can tell from, the forms that I create these technologies, I love that robots are different from people. I think, again, that's the magic of them and our fascination of them, yeah.
Well, I look forward to going to Lisbon next year and seeing Jibo host a session, and we can find out how good he is. Please do thank the panelists, Erica and Naveen and Cynthia.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.